Hello, I'm Blake Bradford. Thank you for watching this video concerning the Board of Ordained Ministry evaluation process. The BOM members are tasked with examining candidates for ordained ministry as to their fitness, effectiveness, and fruitfulness. Without your help as members of the Staff Parish Relations Committee or supervisory team, we would not be able to fulfill this important responsibility. So I thank you for your service not only to your congregation, but to the United Methodist Connection. This video follows up on some elements of giving appropriate feedback and evaluations of your resident. By receiving a provisional elder or deacon into your ministry setting, you have been given a great gift. You have the opportunity to shape a person's ministry for years and even decades to come. In many ways, you will shape the kind of leaders the United Methodist Church will have far into the future. It's a remarkable opportunity and an awesome responsibility. Almost one half of our clergy will be of retirement age in the next 10 years. The United Methodist Church will need strong, effective clergy to be trained and nurtured by congregations such as yours for the future of the denomination, so that we can fulfill our mission of making disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. You can help your resident become an effective minister of the gospel as the resident ministers with and to you in your ministry setting. A large part of your work will be evaluative. You have an important part in this process because the SPRC is our link into the daily work of the resident in the local ministry setting. What we ask of you is to first work with your resident to develop congregational goals and particular ways to achieve these goals. Knowing that the bishop and the cabinet appoints a clergy person to a particular mission field or territory, not only to a particular church, what are the needs of your ministry context? What can this resident do toward helping give life to these goals? There are, of course, many ways to do this, some very formal, such as a strategic planning process, or informally through some intentional conversations. Figuring out and agreeing upon a balance of community needs and congregational membership needs early on in the appointment will make for a clear communication of priorities and goals. The reason that you need to do this work now is that the Board of Ordained Ministry will need a completed evaluation form from you on January 31st every year. We think that your evaluation of the resident will work best if this conversation about ministry goals happens right now early in the time of ministry. That way, the evaluation will be based on clearly defined objectives with months to gauge your resident's progress and effectiveness on these objectives. Copies of the evaluation form are available on the conference website, and your resident will have them as a part of the residency handbook. Please look at this evaluation worksheet now and keep it as an ongoing tool so it will not seem too foreign when you complete it to turn in to the Board of Ordained Ministry later on in January. Of course, feedback is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing relational process. The resident needs your help in navigating your particular congregational culture. Every church is different, sometimes very different. Stepping into a new church is a daunting prospect. Helping with constructive feedback is doing a favor for the new clergy person. This really is where the relations of Pastor-Parish Relations Committee begins. The evaluation that you complete and present to the Board of Ordained Ministry is one part of a series of tools that we use to examine and nurture our clergy residents. Early in your clergy resident's tenure, you will work with him or her in creating priorities and responsibilities. It is on the basis of these priorities, along with basic ministry tasks outlined in the discipline, that you will evaluate your resident's effectiveness and, using appropriate feedback, consult with her or him in ways to increase fruitfulness and effectiveness. Perhaps you remember the story of Moses getting constructive feedback by his father-in-law Jethro. In Exodus 18, we find a burned-out Moses on the verge of ministry madness and a heartbeat away from leaving the nation of Israel in chaos. Jethro came for a visit and watched his son-in-law sit in judgment over legal disputes in Israel. Moses sits and begins to hear an enormous caseload. In fact, the load is so great that the people of Israel standing around him all day long waiting for their turn. This takes the entire day. No rest, no breaks, relentless. Jethro observes his son-in-law at work and understands that Moses' call is enormous and high. But he also recognizes that there are serious flaws in Moses' approach. So he challenges Moses. What is this you are doing? And he then elaborates. Why do you sit alone? How can one man possibly take on this entire load? And then, why do you have all these people standing about you from morning until evening? Moses needed some constructive feedback, and Jethro gave specific feedback that outlined the potential consequences of his behavior and then helped Moses come up with a better solution. He tells him, Moses, no one's questioning your call, your motives, or your gifting, but you cannot do it all alone. Jethro coaches Moses to appoint leaders to oversee groups of 10 and 50, 100 and 1,000, and then to take only the most difficult cases himself. In the story, we find that in order for God's ministry to be extended and expanded for the good of the community, Moses had to change the way he went about his ministry. And that took specific, solution-based feedback from a trusted friend and mentor. So thinking about that story from the Bible, here are some best practices on feedback from the Division of Ordained Ministry in Nashville. First, focus on behaviors, what the person did, or outcomes, what resulted, rather than traits, for example, helpful or cooperative. For example, don't simply say you're an inspirational pastor and leave it at that when doing a formal evaluation. While such global comments may sound really nice, they don't provide the clergy person with specific, helpful advice on what to keep doing or maybe what behaviors may be less helpful. Second, be honest in giving feedback. The Staff Parish Relations Committee should be a sacred space where honest communication can happen. Missing an opportunity to give helpful feedback may result in reinforcing unhealthy ministry habits or behaviors. Also, feedback should not be used to manipulate or to pacify. Third, describe specific behaviors or outcomes and your reaction to them. Effective feedback is descriptive and specific. Fourth, be sure that feedback is a two-way process and is an ongoing activity, not a once-a-year event. And please time feedback well so as to be constructive and informative rather than destructive or embarrassing. Finally, remember the following when you hear a grievance about a clergy person. 1. Do not rely on hearsay if possible, and never simply relay anonymous information. Information without a name attached is worthless in the evaluation process because its content and context cannot be judged. Second, realize that what makes one person unhappy may be what another person likes about the resident. Third, don't assume that if a need is not being met, it's all the pastor's fault. Instead, engage the pastor in dialogue as part of the regular communication process. Perhaps the responsibilities of the clergy person need to be arranged or priorities changed. Perhaps volunteers or additional staff need to be added to meet a particular need, or to take some duties so that the pastor can address the need herself. Please don't allow the feedback process to become a never-ending laundry list of unmet needs. This really is where open and honest communication of priorities early on in the process is so important. We hope that these best practices will be useful to you as you set priorities in consultation with your resident and you base your feedback on those priorities and responsibilities. In your annual Board of Ordained Ministry evaluation, you will see some places to list strengths and growth areas, along with space to use a more narrative format to list specifics. There will also be space for you to tell us if we need to ask anything or address any issues in the BOM spring interviews. Our hope is that you will give us the tools necessary to focus on each of our residents' particular needs. Please work with your resident on clearly stated goals, and please be prayerful, careful, and fair in your evaluations. Again, I suggest you look over the BOM evaluation form now in preparation for your evaluation to be completed before January 31st. I wish you well as you relate to your clergy resident and as we all continue our mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ. Thank you again for watching this Board of Ordained Ministry training video.